But let's get to just assessing the Packers right now. Feel like good things or what? How do you view it? And I ask you this as a player, because I'm guessing when you were a player, all I would worry about was if somebody been to take my job. There's two spots. One, somebody had to take my job, and two, all the other stuff about the team. Am I right about that theory?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is when free agency opens up. I think the first thing guys normally look at is, like you said, who'd they bring in, and is that impacting my job specifically? And if the answer is no to that, then you look at, okay, well, how does this impact the team? And you look at how it is going to help the team in a wide perspective. And you kind of look at what the Packers have done up to this point. And, we talked about this earlier. Like, I think they're going to continue to add guys as free agency goes on, and guys kind of in that lower tier and kind of, bargain area that I think they're going to continue to add some depth in places. But you look at their big spend up to this point and guys they've added in key roles. I think it's been good. I think they've hit in places that they needed to, that they felt necessary. And it's gone well up to this point. There's still some questions that I think we need, there's some things that need answered. There's some guys that are on the roster still that
Bryan Bulaga's questions that you need answered. All right. What's number one?
I think the first one is, there's the hot topic is Jaire, right? Like I think that's the thing that a lot of people continue to ask about. I'm curious about it. Is he going to remain on the roster? Because it's gone through this period now, right? It's continuing to go on. Free agency is coming. It's through kind of the hot part of it. And we talked about it. I've talked about it with Jason Wilde and Tausch. Like, are they going to hold on till the draft and see if they can get capital from him in the draft? And if they don't, are they going to move on from then? Are they going to be able to rework this with him? So, like, that's an interesting part of this with adding Hobbs in free agency. So that's an interesting part of this whole dynamic right now in the free agency thing for Green Bay is him. Because if he does remain on the roster and they do keep him and they take the risk and he does stay healthy and they keep Hobbs and they get Hobbs, obviously, as the free agent, the back end looks really good. Looks really good. I mean, and no one can deny that.
I'm speechless. So that's the number one question. Do I ever say anything that you give any credibility whatsoever? Or is this just an indication? I said how many months ago he's not on the team. He doesn't want to play on the team. They don't want him on the team. But clearly that has not registered with you at all, because you still believe there's a chance he's going to be on the team, right?
I
understand now.
Yeah, until it happens, right? Like, until it happens, like, I will listen, when it happens, I'm going to say, Homer, you were right. I was wrong. You were right the entire time. I was stupid. I should have listened to you from the start. But, like, the way Green Bay operates, like, until it actually goes through, I just don't know, right? Like, and the way they do business, and if they really don't have any, I mean, I don't know how much money they're actually going to save by releasing him. I think it's like, how much, like 8 or 9 million. I'm not totally sure on the amount. But it's not a ton. Yeah, it's not like
I would add this, not about me. When you say about Green Bay, and this is different than mine, but he's hurt too much. He's hurt too much to pay what he wants. And I will defer to you on experiences with the Packers as to where you've seen that if they can't count on you, and I don't know where the dropping the cross the line point is, but that's the part that seems huge to me. And again, the fact that you still think it's possible means I might be misjudging the Packers on like this. Well, yes, he's hurt too much, but that doesn't mean he couldn't possibly come back. Who's the guy that was hurt the most that they brought back and you went, whoa, this is not really the Packers? Or am I wrong in terms of the importance of being able to play, given what you're
No,
giving?
no. Listen, you're 100% correct. The last 2 years and his availability, obviously, I mean, the games speak for themselves, right? Like, I mean, and there's no denying that. You're 100% correct. And Green Bay is um, very well known for as guys move on in their career and they get older, and if they start to miss time, they do move on. And that's very clear and it's very understandable and it's very correct. But Jaire's not at that 30-year-old number yet, right? Like he's still technically a young guy in this league, if you want to look at it that way. That's obviously had injury issues. We all understand that. But I think everyone can agree that he can still play if healthy. So, like, if you look at it from the standpoint of, is there a plan that we can keep him and get him healthy? Is he worth keeping around? And especially if we can renegotiate that deal to make that more team and player friendly, or team friendly more than, player friendly, which it is right now. That's the question. And would Jaire be willing to do that? I don't know. Probably not. But if it can be done, would Green Bay take that risk? And that's where I'm kind of on the fence with. Do I think, is it more likely than not your prediction is true? Yes, I do. But until that happens, I just have to, I keep talking about it because, like, it hasn't happened yet. And that's why I'm there. And I understand fans are probably like sick of me talking about it and sick and be like, it's going to happen. Just stop talking about but like, listen, like, Green Bay normally, and you know this too, you've covered them way longer than I have. Like when they do business, it normally happens very quick, right? Like they do things and it gets done. Like they don't really drag their feet with too many things. Like that's just not the way they operate. They get things done and they do it very quickly. Like normally things don't drag out. And this one we thought was going to get done way quicker and it hasn't. So that's why it's kind of caught my attention a little bit more than what probably it should have. So like that's the only reason why I continue to talk about it. So maybe I'm thinking about it too much. I probably am, but that's my only thing because if he remains, right, and you look at that secondary, it looks a lot different from and he stays healthy. You really like the look of it, right? Him, Hobbs, McKinney, all those young players, like it looks pretty good. I'm just saying.
No, I would agree with you. Now, since I've gotten over the fact that you don't care what I say, I've moved on because I get it now. And what you are saying, maybe I figured this out. Bringing Jaire back, if they do, improves the team more than anything else that we're talking about or that could occur. For example, the name Cooper Kupp has come up. If Jaire comes back, that helps the team. And this is how I'm analyzing what you say, way more than Cooper Kupp. So the most important thing left seems to be, unless they would do something off the charts like Henderson, would be if Jaire comes back. Because even injured, the quality that he can play when he plays improves the team more than anything they're likely going to do at a position. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's
you
kind
know
of the way
how good he is.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. Yeah, I agree with you. Like that's kind of the way I see it. And I would hope, and obviously I don't really have the statistic to back it up from a health standpoint. Like I would hope that he would get more games than he did, obviously, the last few years. Obviously, the numbers aren't on my side with that. But if you're able to get a full or close to a full amount of games out of him and he's able to play the way he's normally able to play, I mean, you're talking about a really dynamic secondary. Then if you were to go out and get a wide receiver or something like that, I mean, to have a really good corner is a bigger impact, in my opinion, than maybe a second or third wideout. You know what I mean? Like, at least in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying Cooper Kupp's not a good receiver or a good option, but if we're looking at, which one probably makes a bigger impact if healthy, right? Because Cooper Kupp's had his issues as well. If we're looking at this thing from a health standpoint, right? Like I think there's been issues on both sides. Um, which one makes a bigger impact if healthy? And I think if it's me, if I'm taking a shot at it, I would say Jaire, if he's healthy, makes a bigger impact. But um, I'm sure there's quarterbacks that would say
I think we should do the Discount Liquor Twitter poll question. Would you like Jaire Alexander or maybe I would say this, are you willing to take a gamble on bringing Jaire Alexander back? That'll be the question, yes or no, because I think gamble is the right word, not about ability, but about injury. And also, I think whether or not, because I've said if I was Jaire, this is probably influenced you. There's no way I'm ever playing for the Packers again. The way you treated me and the way you presented me, no. And I got to move on. I want to go somewhere else. But, I mean, people can move on when they feel like they have been mistreated, just like I did 2 minutes ago. So maybe he would come back. But I would say this. I'm willing to gamble on him.
yeah.
And I'm not even saying he's a starter. I'm saying he can play some games, not play games. There are times when he can be put on someone. You don't have an option on this team that would be that good, even if it's for just a couple of games, even if it's for just one, even it's when you play the Vikings. Take it from there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Like he's so good at what he does that like that's what he's made for these big one-on-one matchups against these premier wide receivers. Like that's what he is so good at. And availability obviously is the biggest thing. And that's what a lot of people are going to continue to say. Like, that's why we don't want to risk it and we can use that money elsewhere. But at the end of the day, like, who are you going to bring in with that money to supplement that? Because if you do bring in somebody, right, and you say you bring in a corner and you pay that guy 4 or 5 million or 6 million, and he ends up not playing well, you're going to go, well, I mean, why is this guy on the field? Why are we playing him? We should, what's the point of even having him out there when you could have just potentially just paid Jaire what it was, right? And I get it. You're worried about the health issues, and say he only plays 10, 11 games, but you get high level of play, and then you get him in the playoffs. I mean, it ends up paying off. So to have him against these big time wide receivers, which we now know the NFC North is full of, unfortunately, the NFC North is full of big time wide receivers. You need corners that can step up to the plate against these type of receivers, and Jaire is that. So to me, as long as he's still on the roster, I feel like there's something happening there that we don't know about yet. And then until he's gone, I'm still going to be thinking about what's being thought up at 1265 regarding his future.
I think, I've always said that I thought I could be Aaron Rodgers' quarterback coach, but I want to emphasize, I think any human on earth could be Aaron Rodgers' quarterback coach. You just come in each day and go, can I get you coffee? What would you like to eat? Do your laundry, whatever. Well, what about the quarterback? You do whatever you think is best.
Yeah.
That's the easiest job in the world. But as general manager, I don't know that I could handle it. It would depend on if I could hire good people under me. But if I was general manager of the Packers, as far as Jaire Alexander, I have to do only one thing. I bring Xavier McKinney in, and I say, do you want Jaire on the team? You're asking me? Yeah. If you want Jaire on the team, Jaire's staying on the team. You don't want him on the team, between you and me, then we'll move on. I think that much of McKinney and think that would give you the idea. And privately, I'm guessing, am I correct that privately, or do players always defend players? Or do you think in that situation you would get the truth privately out of Xavier McKinney?
Obviously, I don't know the relationship between McKinney and Jaire to begin with.
Could you tell the truth if they'd asked you about another offensive lineman privately to the general manager, or would you say that breaks the code of players?
I don't think. I mean, it depends on if a guy, if I thought a guy was good for the locker room or bad, right? Like if I thought a guy was really bad for the locker room or bad for the team, I'd be honest about it, right? Like, and
Okay.
it it's one of those things that you have to be very careful with, because I've always said it, like if the guy's a really good player, right? And it straddles the line. He's really good, but then he does things that are bad for a locker room. Like you have to walk a careful line with how you manage that type of player, right? So like if you ever got asked that by a GM or someone higher up, like you have to be very careful with that, because if you lose a player like that, right, instead of trying to like speak to him and try to like, not totally manage him, but just try to reel it in a little bit, and you lose a player like that, it could impact the team significantly, like big time. Like you lose a guy like that, you let him go because, oh man, he acted up a little bit, or you couldn't get him under control just a little bit. I mean, the ramifications could be huge. So like you have to be very cautious about that. But when you have a guy like McKinney that seems like he has a very good pulse of the team, he's obviously very well respected. He's a leader. Um, I would imagine that he would be pretty straightforward if asked that question. And whether or not he's good friends with Jaire or not, again, I don't know that, but I think he would be honest. But he also knows at the same time the talent level of Jaire, and if Jaire is healthy, he understands the ability that he would bring and what he could do positively for that defense. So he would probably be in that same boat of like, how do I approach that question, knowing the ability if available, but then also like not making myself like obviously liable. Say I say yes, and it's an awful thing. He'll never have any. I'll have no credit upstairs again. Like I'll have absolutely no credit. So like you have to be careful with that as a player. Like if a GM ever asks you a question like that.
I actually thought you I expect you to say, and I think a lot of it bases on how important a player you are. Like if you're just a guy, I would think I would say, "Excuse me, you're the GM. All right, you got to do that stuff. I'm not going in that department. My job is just to keep getting a paycheck and keep playing for the Green Bay Packers. So I appreciate the offer, but I think I'll pass." I mentioned McKinney for all the reasons that you did, and I think McKinney might also say he didn't want to be here anymore, or some way to say it's I don't. You would figure out a way to do it, but
Well,
I would think there's a certain level when you first came on the Packers and they asked you that. I know what you'd say. I'm not going there. I'm the wrong guy to ask.
I would have literally been like, I
Yes.
think you're looking at someone behind me asking that question. You're certainly not asking me that question, is what
Yeah.
I would have said. Like that,
Okay.
you can't be asking me that. Like there's no way. Yeah, no. I mean, there was only probably one or two guys, if that happened, that got asked that question. And the one was the signal caller. Um, and maybe one at the time would have been Charles when he was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's rare.
It's
We'll
the
just put it that
exception.
way.
It's the
Yeah.
exception. All right, we're going to break and then we'll get to the second quarter. The Bryan Bulaga Homer Hour. No calls today, but we do have questions, and you can always send them to me, homer at espnmilwaukee.com, or the talk and text line 1-800-990-3776.